Hello and welcome to the latest Ticker TV interview. Today we're joined by Jasper Smith, the CEO and founder of Arksen, the privately owned maker of high quality outdoor products. They sell everything from explorer sea vessels to overland vehicles and explorer wear. Now they've joined forces with Sir David Attenborough, the world's best known naturalist, and they've co-produced Ocean, Sir David's latest documentary. Welcome, Jasper. It's really good to see you again.
Hi, Donald. Yeah, lovely to be here, and thanks for having us.
Fantastic. Now, let me start by asking you why Arksen has decided to support the cause of marine conservation and how you ended up working with Sir David Attenborough, which in itself is no small thing.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, it's a sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I think it's one of those things that you'll look back on in life and go, wow, I actually did that. So I'm on a personal basis, extremely proud. But I guess the core reason was, when we set Arksen up in the first place, we wanted it to be a really purpose-led brand. And we thought, what better project, what better person to help give it legitimacy and authenticity than Sir David Attenborough. And we were lucky enough to work with Silverback, who are, one of the world's largest producers of natural history content. And so they were really the guiding light on the production itself and pulling that together. And from Arksen's perspective, we, helped a lot with as a co-producer in terms of financing and providing equipment and things into the production. But that was really our core reason for getting involved.
And the next obvious question I would say would be, is it possible to summarise the problems which are facing marine conservation at the moment that the documentary deals with? I'm sure quite thoroughly.
Yeah. Look, I think what's extraordinary about the ocean is that we've proven beyond all doubt that there are ways of fixing the ocean very, very quickly. And that's largely through the setting up and monitoring and controlling marine protected areas, because that enables livestock to sort of rejuvenate very quickly. So the theme has basically a central message, which is that to protect 30% of our ocean by 2030, which is obviously the big goal that everybody is working towards, requires governments and communities to put in place protected areas of the ocean, large protected areas. And so that's really what we're focused on. There are a number of other core messages that try and drive that one forward. So there is quite a lot of references to sort of intensive factory fishing, factory ship fishing. So there's a lot of narrative around that. There's also messages around some other forms of fishing like bottom trawling and things like that. So it's really saying let's treat the ocean with much more respect than we currently do. And let's set aside large chunks of the ocean so that en masse it can recover.
So these things will need a significant change of direction and some serious funding. So what are Arksen trying to do to make that come about? If you could explain the funding issues that lie behind the documentary.
Yeah, so I think if you look at ocean conservation on a global basis, it currently gets about 0.3% of global philanthropic funding. So virtually nothing in the scheme of collective giving in the world. And if you look at some of the reasons behind that, it's that the ocean generally looks great all the time. You look at it, it's very hard to see that it's overfished from the surface. It's very hard to see it's full of toxins and plastics. It's very hard to see the effects of climate change, et cetera, et cetera. And so we tend to ignore the ocean, yet it gives us every second breath that we take. It feeds billions of people on the planet every day. It's a key tool against fighting climate change. In fact, the most important tool on planet Earth for fighting climate change. Yet no money gets put towards it. So really our aims behind this film are to try and amplify funding that is given to the ocean, such that the multitude of causes and extraordinary projects that are happening around the world to try and rejuvenate and restore critical ocean ecosystems are given a little bit more capital. And so we set up an initiative to try and drive that, which I'd love to tell you about.
Now's your chance, Jasper. Tell me.
So we set this foundation up called 10% for the Ocean, and
did you actually set up 10% for the ocean?
Yeah, Arksen set it up, and Arksen is one of the core founders of it, alongside a raft of other organisations. So Fauna and Flora, Cazenove as a big bank is supporting it, and various other institutions. Some foundations like the Sean Connery Foundation, etc. So together, what we've tried to do is launch this initiative called 10% for the Ocean, which is really just a simple pledge and a call to arms saying that if you do give money to charity philanthropically every year, just give 10% of what you give to the ocean. And if collectively we could encourage those that give to give just 10% of what they give to the ocean, that would create a super fund that would enable us to effectively accelerate all the conservation and rejuvenation work that the ocean needs, to benefit from if we have any chance of hitting our 20 by 30 goals. So capital is the absolute catalyst of change, and without access to capital, it's virtually impossible to see how we ever get to a point where we've got sustainable oceans. So it's a really, really interesting initiative, and it's a simple, as I said, a simple pledge and a simple call to arms.
Now, is 10% for the Ocean's Charitable Foundation? Is it a business to business type thing, or are you actually also appealing to the population at large?
Yeah, very much the latter. I mean, it is supported by large foundations, and that's the aim of it is to try and create a very stable foundation, but then to encourage retail donors, individuals that are currently supporting cats and dogs and trees and forests and things like that, to just donate a small amount of what they donate to the ocean in parallel with their other giving.
Okay. David, I saw the trailer for this in the cinema the other day, and my goodness, it pinned me back in my seat. David Attenborough is clearly taking a very activist approach. He may be 99, but he's not railing against the light. He's just laying it down and saying, listen to me. Guys, now's the time. Get this sorted, and there's still time, but you have to do it now. Why do you think that really activist approach? Why does that appeal to Arksen? Why is it the right thing for your stakeholders, and why is it the right issue for you yourself to be involved with?
Exactly. At the end of the day, if you've got a business, you have to be now a purpose-led business. I think it's almost impossible to justify being anything other than being resolute about what you're trying to do. And for us, being working with an activist and being supportive of that type of messaging is fundamental to who we are and fundamental to the brand we're trying to build. And there are very, very few people on the planet that have David's sort of breadth of experience, and the fact that he can look at the ocean almost as he's nearly 100 years and go, this is my experience of the ocean over that 100 years is quite extraordinary. And I think any brand would jump at the opportunity to be involved.
Well, I'm not sure any brand would, but I completely buy if David Attenborough tells you something, you're going to believe it. So, and I can see that it is very aligned with your brand values. But I do think it is brave, and I'll tell you why I think it is brave. Because in Britain we're kind of nuts about guide dogs. I quickly googled the top 15 charities, yeah, and the different sizes of charitable giving. The guide dogs are up there, the World Wildlife Fund, National Trust, the Aranelai lifeboats, who save people on the surface of the ocean, but don't actually care about so much, I suspect, about what goes on underneath it. Are you not worried that you're going to upset these folks, these animal lovers, or that alternatively you might just be ignored?
Not at all. I don't think we have any fear around it. I mean, I think there's an absurdity to the fact that we spend 4 times more on cat food globally than we spend on conserving the oceans. We spend 7,000 times more on subsidizing fossil fuels than we do conserving the oceans. And these stats go on and on and on. I think we spend 100 times more on ice cream globally than we spend on conserving the oceans. So all our consumer behavior, I think when you look at it in the compound, there's an absurdity to it. And I think for Arksen to be able to sort of, and 10% for the ocean, to be able to sort of highlight that absurdity and to be able to work with people like Sir David Attenborough, who can really eloquently deliver some of the messages and some of the sort of messages of hope as well as concern, is an extraordinary privilege. And I'm very proud that we were lucky enough to be involved.
But not just that, but you're actually trying to structure the giving. You're trying to structure a solution as opposed to just simply outlining and raising awareness. You're actually trying to, give a strategic solution, help sort things out so that people know where to give the money, and then you're actually channeling it from that point onwards, which seems quite a wise approach.
Yeah, I think if you look at it conceptually, that there are about 35,000 ocean projects around the world at the moment, but each of those projects is competing for very small amounts of money through their local communities and things like that. And most of those projects, extraordinary as they are, find it very hard to raise significant capital. And so our approach was to say, okay, well, let's bring together the 70 or 80 most impactful projects that we can find in the world, and let's create a mutual fund that sits above that. So essentially, we are offering grants, to a broad network that covers all of the world. So I like to think of it as like a mutual fund for the ocean, but it's a philanthropic mutual fund for the ocean. And so far we've supported 70 organizations, 27 countries, and about 400 discrete projects, ranging from deep foundational research with people like the National Oceanographic Centre in Southampton, who incidentally run the Sir David Attenborough ships and all the UK's big infrastructure fleet, all the way through to coral regrowth and sports people, and trying to do amazing endeavours that raise the bar of education around the ocean, through to films like the film we've just made. So the idea is to be able to amplify ocean conservation on a broad scale by using education as a key driver and primer of change, and then funding projects that have material impact.
Okay, we've been right through the whole philanthropic element of it, but it's probably worth actually explaining in simple terms who Arksen are and the kind of equipment you make, and for those who haven't come across Arksen so far.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at our heart, we're a design and engineering group. So we design and build stuff, and we build stuff for life's greatest journeys. So, if you've ever dreamed of sailing across an ocean, or you've dreamed of driving around across a continent, or scaling a mountain, or going out trekking, so we build the equipment for you to go and do that. And that equipment ranges from extraordinary apparel, clothing that you can use, through to class leading explorer vessels that have a 7,500 mile range, full hybrid systems, recovery from capsize, etc., etc., etc. So it's a very tantalizing business, but as I said, at its core, it's an engineering business, and we make stuff that hopefully brings people to life.
And it's aimed at explorers, and you would imagine it's very aligned with ocean conservation, and presumably that you're simply living the brand alignment, really.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I think every brand has to stand for something, and I think ours stands for an alignment of purpose around ocean conservation. And our core business is a marine business, and we tell our story through other products as well, but our core is really around marine. And so preservation of our sort of marine resources everywhere is fundamental to our business.
Okay, and if people want to know more about the film, they want to know about 10% for the Oceans, they want to know more about Arksen, where should they go?
So the film is in, I think, about 500 screens around the world. So that's amazing. So please go and see that. I think the cinema experience will be second to none. I think it's absolutely the place to see it. The soundtrack is absolutely unbelievable, and the cinematography is just stunning. It will also be available on streamers on Disney and Nat Geo later in the year. I think from June the 7th and June the 8th. To see more about 10% for the Ocean, go to 10percentfortheocean.org. And of course, to see some of the extraordinary things that we're doing at Arksen, arksen.com.
Okay, Jasper, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for talking us through 10% for the Oceans, for the Ocean film with Sir David Attenborough, for the whole thing. Thank you. That was very, very interesting. For further information, please check out the various website URLs. We've got them at the bottom of this YouTube page. We've got them on the end slate at the end of this interview. And do head to the Arksen homepage. I was on there today and I saw that it was all over the Arksen homepage. So you really are, Jasper, you really are giving this the full Arksen push.
Donald, thanks so much. It was great to talk to you again, and I hope to see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.